Hello, middle one. Today we are going to talk together about important items all related to poetry. We all know that most of us, this is the first time you study poetry. So you might find some problems with new vocabulary. We are going to try discuss these new vocabulary together. But let me ask you a question at the beginning. Have you ever thought about the meaning of the word poetry? What's poetry? Let me share this information with you. As you see in the picture, in poetry, the sound and meaning of words are combined to express feelings, thoughts, and ideas. This is the main job of writing poetry. It's to express or to convey feelings and ideas. Actually, the word poetry is like a big umbrella, and under this umbrella, you might see a lot of different vocabulary. Let's try to find out the meaning of each one, or maybe the main ones. If you are studying poetry, a very important word you always see is the word poet. And make sure you pronounce it poet. As you see in the picture, the poet, this is someone who writes poetry. So who is a poet? A poet is someone who writes poetry. Another word, it's a little bit similar or closer to the word poet in spelling, which is poem. The poet, this is someone who writes poetry, and the poem, this is what the poet writes. So you may call this a poem. This year, inshallah, you're going to study different poems written by different poets. So a poet is someone who writes poetry, and a poem, this is a piece of art written by a poet. A very important word you need to know what's meant by is stanza. What's a stanza? A stanza in a poem is like a paragraph in an essay. Each stanza is usually separated by some blank space. So, one stanza, it's formed of few lines, then separated by some blank space, you find space, and then you may find another stanza. Each stanza consists of few lines. Common stanza lengths are 2, 3, 4, 6, or 8 lines. Usually not more than this, and not less than this. So, each group of lines, they are called what? Stanza. And usually each stanza, it might be giving different idea, or maybe discussing the same idea. It depends on the poem itself. If you are studying poetry, definitely you are going to see this word, paraphrase. What's meant by paraphrase? Meaning, definition, or explanation. So in your exam, if I put stanza, which means group of lines, and I ask you to paraphrase these lines or this stanza, your job will be to do what? To rewrite this stanza in your own words. You give me the meaning, the definition, the explanation. What can you understand from this stanza in your own words? A very important word, figurative language. What's figurative language? What do you think we mean by this word? Figurative language, this is a type of descriptive language where the meaning of the phrase is not to be taken literally. If you are not going to take something literally, it means it's not word for word. So you don't understand the figurative language as it's written. Usually, the phrase or the sentence, it has a deeper or more abstract meaning. You may call figurative language more or less, this is the use of imagination. This is something which is real or it's not real. It's not real. Usually, a poet uses figurative language in order to describe, to give descriptions, to use his own imagination in order to convey or express his feelings. Let me tell you that if you are studying figurative language, there are so many words that you are going to come across. Because actually, figurative language, there are so different forms under this word, which is the figurative language. Like what? You may have, the first one you usually study is simile. And maybe you study after it the metaphor. And then personification. These are the three main branches or types of figurative languages. Figurative language, as we said, it means the use of imagination. And then you may study idiom, or you may study hyperbole, or you may study onomatopoeia. All these, they are different forms of figurative language. And actually, we are going to share another video. We are going to discuss what is the meaning of each one. Maybe you are familiar with simile, metaphor, and personification. Maybe idiom, but I don't think you are familiar with the onomatopoeia or the hyperbole. Anyway, we are going to discuss this later on. Finally, another important word, which is the rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme is the ordered pattern of rhyming words at the end of each line. The rhyme scheme is so much related to music. Do you know, if you read a poem, you usually find some sort of music at the ending of each line of a poem. The rhyme scheme, to be honest with you, it's a long story. It cannot be discussed in only one slide. But as I told you at the beginning of the video, that this is just an introduction to get introduced to the different terms or the different words related to vocabulary. We are going to discuss the rhyme scheme and how you can express it, but briefly, this pattern is labeled using capital letters. So if you are going to write a rhyme scheme of a poem, you are going to refer to it using capital letters. Okay? What's meant by rhyme scheme? This is like the ordered pattern or the music that you usually hear at the end of each line of a poem. Actually, these are the main terms or the main words that you need to know if you are studying poetry. Thank you very much for watching this video. I wish it's useful, and inshallah we are going to meet in another video.